Hello Whovians and welcome to my latest Doctor Who review, where today I review episodes 8 and 9 of series 2 of the new series, The Impossible Planet and the Satan Pit, starring David Tennant as the 10th Doctor. So, The Impossible Planet and the Satan Pit, this is also the second two-part story of the second series of New Who, and the basic plot is as follows. The 10th Doctor and Rose lose the TARDIS down a deep chasm, leaving themselves stranded on a space base positioned on a planet in the orbit of a black hole. Meanwhile, an entity who identifies as Satan himself is awakening and beginning to cause chaos amongst the crew. Okay, The Impossible Planet and the Satan Pit. Now, I must confess, this is not a story that I've watched many times, actually, considering that it is a David Tennant story. It's one of the ones that I kind of forgotten about. It was off my radar for quite some time. Last year, in fact, I did rewatch the story in an audio commentary with my good friend and subscriber, Jack the Film Fanatic, and I wasn't keen on it, to be honest. Maybe it was because we were watching it very late in the evening, and I was kind of drifting in and out of consciousness, lol. So I went into watching this again with a bit of an open mind. I was either going to like it or I wasn't, to be honest. My overall stance on this one is it's good. Yeah. It's good. I like it, but I don't think it's great. I think the first issue really is that it's too long. I think this story should have been one part and not two, because several scenes in this story drag, particularly in the second part. The second part actually really lets the story down, if I'm going to be perfectly honest. I felt that there was a lack of tension, really. There's like one sequence where Rose, Jefferson, Danny are going through a ventilation shaft being chased by the Ood, but other than that, the rest of the story is just talky. Everyone's just talking and talking. It just starts to really get on my nerves, especially when you consider that the length of the episodes are actually long as well. The first episode, The Impossible Planet, is 48 minutes, and then The Satan Pit is 49 minutes. So they're quite long, and as a two-part story, it really does feel dragged out, as far as I'm concerned. The biggest issue I have with the story is that David Tennant doesn't really get to do anything. He doesn't get to do that much. He's mostly wearing his spacesuit for the entire story, and he goes with Ida Scott to investigate the chasm. And they're just talking and sitting down and talking, and it's like, oh, just get to the point, for God's sake. I think there's too much time spent talking. The pace of this story is awful, quite frankly. The story needed to be much tighter, which is why I stand by my opinion that it should have been one part and not two. And Billie Piper as Rose, she is good in this story, although there are times when she starts to act a bit too much like the Doctor. I get why they're doing this, because they're slowly building up to the Doctor and Rose falling in love, and I can understand that. It did kind of get on my nerves how much Rose was trying to inherit the Doctor's mannerisms as well, like when she was ordering the boys around and everything. I was like, this is not really true to Rose's character. I don't think she would do that. I mean, I know it's meant to show how far she's come since the first series and how much she's grown in confidence and how she can take charge, which is great. When she starts to kind of, do the old kind of, oh, look at me, I'm brilliant thing, like David Tennant does as the Doctor. It kind of felt like she was trying to impersonate him in a way. It's not Billie Piper's fault, it's just the writing, and I think they went a bit too far with that. I want to stress, this is not a terrible story. I do like it, it is good, and it was better than I remembered it to be. You've also got a great supporting cast. You have Zachary Cross-Flane, who is the captain of this team at this space station, and you really feel the guy's pressure. Although for most of the story, he's just kind of sitting down and talking as well. He's not doing that much either until the later events of the story. But his performance is good. Mr. Jefferson, who is a military man, he's basically a soldier, and his sacrifice is rather powerful. Then there's Ida Scott as well, who spends a long time with the Doctor, and she's quite a good character, although she kind of gets sidelined in the second episode. They kind of forget about Ida as the story goes on. We also have Danny as well, who's in control of the Ood, and then we have Scooty, who is a young maintenance woman. Scooty is unfortunately killed in the first part of the story by the other character named Toby. Scooty is only 20 years old, and she's fairly new to the group. She's kind of the novice, and very sadly, the Beast infects Toby and then kills Scooty, which is quite dramatic. It's kind of horrific to see the image of her body floating around in the black hole, and the idea of them kind of being near this black hole. I mean, it looks cool. I mean, the visuals are really, really good. And as for the character of Toby, well, he's quite an interesting one. Toby isn't evil as such, but his body is being possessed by the Beast, and I like the red eyes that he has, and then the makeup that they give him. Like, he's got all these weird symbols and hieroglyphics on his hands and his face, and the actor's very good. He's very creepy. Toby is somewhat of an archaeologist, and he is basically studying the hieroglyphics. They're trying to translate them, because when the Doctor and Rose arrive on the space station, they find this message on the wall called "Welcome to Hell," and there's a message underneath. Toby has been trying to decipher it for quite some time, but sadly he has no luck. Quite dramatic as well when Rose chooses to kill Toby at the end, when she shoots the gun in the rocket window, and then Toby gets sucked out into the cold vacuum of space. Sad, really, because Toby himself, it's not his fault what happens, but the Beast has infected him, and there's no other way to really save themselves. As for the Ood, yeah, I quite like the Ood. They're good aliens. I think they're actually better in the next appearance they have, which is Planet of the Ood, but they're pretty good here. How they start out as these kind, sort of friendly, serving aliens, and then they turn nasty. But the design of them is really great, that he's sort of got these weird alien heads and these sort of worm-like things that trail down, and they hold these crystal balls which with a piece of string attached to them. They do look really freaky, and the practical effects are amazing. And they are pretty threatening in this story. I do feel like they could have done maybe slightly more, but I did like them. I also really like the set as well. The set of the space station is really great. It feels kind of enclosed and refined. And, you know, there's not many places for the characters to go, because there'll be an Ood around every corner. That's really good. I do feel like when the Doctor gets down into the chasm and finds the Beast, that confrontation could have been so much more. I get the Doctor's dilemma. It's, you know, if he destroys the underground chasm where the Beast is, he'll destroy the Beast, and then that will affect the gravity of the rocket or something. So he doesn't want to sacrifice Rose, but either way, they're basically screwed. So he has to make the hard choice. But all the Doctor has to do to destroy the Beast is smash 2 vases, and that's it. It just felt so underdone. Like, there could have been so much more to that, and that final scene with David Tennant and the Beast, it was meaningless to me. It just didn't really go anywhere. And also, classic fans will be very happy to know that Gabriel Wolfe returns to voice the Beast. Woohoo! He's used his voice in in various places in the classic era, and it's nice to have him back. It really is. And when he does provide his voice, it is pretty scary, so that's great. And the CGI for the Beast, it's pretty good. I mean, yes, it's very dated by this point, but most of the CGI in this series is dated now, but he does look pretty freaky. The design is scary. I mean, he's chained up to these things, and he's just kind of like roaring at the Doctor for most of the time. But to be honest, I did lose interest in this story a few times, because it was long and baggy. David Tennant didn't get to do very much, and it just it didn't go anywhere for a long time. I do, however, really like Murray Gold's soundtrack. The soundtrack for this story is excellent. Dun 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 dun. There's some great music in this one. There's also a lovely scene at the beginning between the Doctor and Rose when they think they're stuck on this space station, and they talk about settling down. Again, it's kind of a scene that's sort of bringing them a bit closer together, and the Doctor's like, no, I'm done, I'm dying, I'm not going to settle down, I'm not going to get a mortgage, no, none of that. Yeah, and then Rose talks about her mum, Jackie, and how she can't even phone her mum because there's no signal anymore. And you do feel a little bit sorry for Toby, considering that he never asked for any of this to happen, and he's literally scared for his life, and they don't really seem to explore why he's possessed that much. Obviously, he's the guy that's studying the hieroglyphics and everything, but I feel like the Doctor and Toby could have had more scenes together. The Doctor could have been trying to help him. Nobody tries to help him, and I think that's kind of insulting, to be honest. There are just several missed opportunities with this story, and honestly, it's not one of my favourites from Tennant's era. I never really remembered it that much until now. It's directed okay by James Strong, but it could have been so much tighter. Like I said, one part would have sufficed, I think, for this story. It's too long. And as for the script, Matt Jones, I mean, you know, it's not a bad script. It's decent. Like, there are some good parts to it, but there's some genuinely terrifying scenes with the Ood, and the Beast. Otherwise, it's kind of a long, talky story, and yeah, that's it. And the end of the story is okay when the Doctor and Rose manage to escape. The Doctor finds the TARDIS. Just conveniently, the TARDIS is in the chasm. Like, yeah. Of all the places, it's just too convenient how the Doctor gets out at the end, but by the TARDIS just being there. And then he takes Ida with him, and then they swap Ida and Rose around, and Rose and the Doctor just go, and that's it. So to be honest, this story is a little forgettable. It's got missed opportunities, but it has some decent scares and looks good, sounds good. It has a great atmosphere to itself, but it's not a classic. It's definitely not a classic. So, taking everything into consideration, I am going to score The Impossible Planet and The Satan Pit. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. It's decent, but yeah, it kind of disappointed me in a lot of areas. So anyway, thank you very much for watching this review, and stay tuned next time when we come to a very hated Doctor Who story, Love and Monsters. Oh boy, this is going to be a controversial one. A lot of people hate this story, so what do I think of it? Well, you'll find out in the next review. So until then, thank you all for watching, and as always, I'm Mr. TARDIS 11. See you soon. Bye for now.